Mr. Maximilian, our guest of panel, Mr. Hussein, he's saying that US and United Nations has now the right to dictate what the world should do because no one has the right to dictate for them what they do. So, as a European, how can you describe the situation right now?
Sure. I'd like to respond to some of Mr. Askari's points, which are interestingly put, but not necessarily entirely accurate. The rules-based international order includes the United Nations, of which he speaks, of course. These were built up by the international community in response to World War II in an attempt to try to make sure that no such thing would ever happen again. The countries that put us at risk of such things happening again, Russia, as is quite clear, or China with its genocide of the Uyghurs, which sadly there hasn't been an international response to. These countries, abusing, jailing, torturing millions of Muslims, bombing, killing Ukrainians, Syrians, these fall outside the international order, and it is only right that they be sanctioned. He is certainly correct about the economic development of countries like China, but this is very importantly also based on this exact same rules-based, dollar-denominated international order. And you don't have to ask me, you just have to look at who is the largest holder of U.S. Treasury bonds, the key dollar instrument in the world, which is, of course, China. China has a lot to benefit from this system. This system is what has helped bring China out of its historic poverty and back into its position as a leading international country. There's a reason China still has a closed capital account and doesn't allow the free flow of movement in one way or another, because they're actually fairly happy with the dollar-based international order. The Russians, however, certainly are not. We've seen that by their response to sanctions, but that's impoverishing the Russian people as we speak. And these crippling sanctions are going to put Russians back into levels of poverty not seen since the 1990s. And just to finish up on that point, it was in 1998 when the IMF, World Bank, and the West helped Russia recover from its domestic financial collapse that put Russia on the basis for the growth that it is now, because it was such a good part of the international community and had very good relations and was able to work together with them. The Putin regime has no interest in doing any of that and will be impoverishing the Russian people for decades.
Mr. Maximilian, I beg your pardon, but the statement is well clear that when the attack happened on Syria, Libya, Iraq, no one condemned the actions. But now, when Russia is moving forward and economically, militarily, with its allies such as China and other countries in Eastern Europe, all the world is enraged and having a war drive against Russia. Why?
Look, many countries, including the United States, have made lots of foreign policy mistakes. I would certainly agree with that. Iraq was a war crime and a disaster, and something that I think the United States has not done enough to fix and apologize to put right. But the West has responded to some of those other disasters, which weren't so close to its doorstep. Of course, the United States did intervene in Syria, both against the horrors of the Islamic State, as well as against the brutality of the Assad regime. We can debate whether it went far enough, but further responses would certainly have risked a wider conflict in the Middle East. I think the ability to respond to the level that we've seen over the Ukraine crisis is not only because, one, it's at Europe's borders, so Europe feels more of an immediate security threat, but two, is precisely because of those defensive alliances that we spoke about that don't exist in the Middle East. And because of that, Europe and the United States can stand and speak with one voice through NATO and make clear that an attack on any one is an attack on any other. There is no kind of security infrastructure like that in the Middle East depending on where one's position is, to dissuade against an Iranian attack or a Saudi attack. And of course, finally, my final point is, amid all of this, China has been genociding Muslims, right? Committing a genocide against the Uyghur people of East Turkestan. So I think one can debate the lack of response from the West, but certainly that the lack of response doesn't equate to the dramatic crimes against humanity that we've seen carried out in Kashgar.